A very good morning once again, and welcome to our very first official meeting where we are going to discuss a few things pertaining to the project and get to share ideas on these things too. But before we begin, my name is Esibintuma Norte, the Executive Administrator for EduGuard Insights. I am going to help us ascertain ourselves to a few rules regarding the meeting so we don't end up interfering or making, how do I put it, for the smooth run of the meeting. So the first rule is let's all kindly ensure that we are using our full names. I've seen people using numbers, some it's their phones names. So please kindly change it to your full name for easy recognition and so that we can engage you. And also, even though you are being muted directly by the technical team, please kindly make sure you are muted when you are not speaking. It is to minimize the background noise so that everybody can hear us. And also kindly turn off your camera. The reason being that for internet connectivity to be strong, we would need all of you to please turn off your cameras. But when need be, we would ask you to turn them back on. And please, we will need all of you, your engagement, to kindly be attentive and participate actively during all discussions. All right, so I am here today on the meeting with our Executive Director, Mr. Jonathan Yawag-Betchwamido. For those who joined earlier have probably heard him speak already, but in the course of the meeting, I would invite him again to continue. Let us familiarize ourselves. So in the next 2 to 3 minutes, we would want us to introduce ourselves. So if you're interested in introducing yourself, just raise a hand and the technical team will unmute you so you can speak. Welcome once again, and thank you all for joining today's meeting.
Hello.
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, my name is Kwame Adakwe from the Ashanti region.
Okay, thank you. But why did you join today's meeting? What is your expectation for the meeting too?
Okay, well, I'm a student, a research student now, and always I believe that we should make decisions with data. We shouldn't make decisions in the abstract, and I believe a lot of the times in Ghana we just assume something and make decisions out of that. And so when I saw the advert EduGuard, I thought that this is a fine opportunity for me to help make the research, and then decisions will now be based on data, not just in abstract. And I also believe that because I'm also a research student, it will help me gain some kind of internship or some kind of practicalities in research. So that's why I decided to join. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll call on Paul Nicholas. Paul, you have the floor.
Good morning to you all. Please,
Good
my
morning.
name is Nicholas. Yeah, my name is Nicholas from Tamale, the northern region. And I'm so happy to be here.
Thank you, Nicholas. We're also happy to have you here today. We'll do a few more. I'll call on Abdul Rashid. Abdul Rashid, you have the floor. If Abdul Rashid is not available, we'll do Savior Kwame.
Okay. My name is Sylvia Kwame Dogbe from Kwame and so in the East region. It's a pleasure to join this great initiative and contribute to resolving societal problems to EduGuard. Thank you.
It's a pleasure to have you too, Sylvia. I think we'll do more. Oh, there is no lady who has raised their hand. Okay, we'll call on Emmanuel. Your other name I really can't mention. I don't want to butcher it. Emmanuel, you have the floor. Okay, Emmanuel has vanished. Monica, you have the floor.
Hello.
Hi.
My name is Monica. I got one from. I'm Monica from Sandama in the Upper East region. And I'm a counseling psychology student who is into the well-being of the individual. So when a good platform to learn more and to interact with individuals who want to know more about volunteerism. So that's why I joined the platform.
Thank you very much, Monica. We'll call on the last person. So call on the last person, Mr. Robert. If you can hear me, you can unmute and speak.
All right. Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Robert. I think assistant at the Faculty of Social Science, University of Cape Coast, and a researcher as well. So on this morning, I'm very happy to be part of this engagement, and I expect nothing but the best. Thank you all.
Thank you, Robert, and thanks to everyone who is. Thank you, Robert, and thank you to everyone who introduced them. So I'll quickly take us through the itinerary for the day. It was placed on the pages today, but for the benefit of those who couldn't read the document. So we are already done with the introduction and welcoming. So next we are going to have an insight about what EduGuard is. And under that, we are going to have a brief overview of EduGuard. You'll get to know our vision and all of that. Next, we'll be discussing the NEASS Project. For those who joined us and had the interviews, you have a fair knowledge of what the NEASS Project is about, but we are going to discuss that further. And we are going to analyze volunteer roles and expectations from our volunteers. As we all know, you guys are a key part for the success of the project. So we really need everyone on board for that. Next, we'll be having the introduction of what we've called the EduGuard Ambassador Program, which will be led by the Executive Director when it's time. We are going to have a breakout session and get to interact with ourselves more. Lastly, we'll be doing feedback and sharing of ideas that we bring the meeting to a close. The meeting is scheduled to, we are literally going to take like an hour and 30 minutes at most. We count on your usual cooperation, and thank you once again. So I'll call on the Executive Director, Mr. Jonathan Agbechomido, to take over from here.
Hello and good morning, everyone. All right, so I'm going to assume that everyone can hear me. So once again, welcome to our very first conclave of volunteers. We have labeled it as a conclave because for those of you who have an idea about the Catholic world, probably you would have noticed that when the Pope was being selected, it was labeled as a conclave. So that meeting is called a conclave. And the idea behind having a conclave is literally having a select group of people meet and discuss very sensitive issues. We believe at EduGuard that the topic of assessment, education in itself is super sensitive. And it's very important that we address it from that perspective to get people to understand why there's a need to address these challenges that are seen within the context of education in Ghana. So that's the reason why we are having this conversation today, and we hope that you are able to help us go through all of that. What we are going to do at this point, I'm going to help you understand what EduGuard is all about in the next 8 to 10 minutes. Now, when we say EduGuard, first of all, the full name is EduGuard Insights. It's an educational consultancy that is registered in Ghana. And it was born out of the need of addressing educational assessment issues within the region of Ghana. And so the first thing that you need to understand is that it's an independent educational consultancy. So it's not funded by any external institution. It's independent and funds its own activities. However, we may have partners on some specific initiatives. Like, for example, the NEASS project that we'll be discussing as we move through this meeting. Information of that sort or projects of that sort are those that we run alongside some major partners so that we are able to get more people into the perspective. Sorry, you said my voice is very down. Is that the same for everyone? Okay, I'm hearing no, you can hear clearly. Okay, good. So please check your speaker to be sure that it's not mine, because everyone else says they can hear you. Okay. Someone else says they can't hear. So just give me a second. What I'm going to do then is that I'm going to be using the direct microphone and not use the AirPods that I'm connected. Maybe that should help better. So give me just a second. Just for the benefit of everyone. Just a second. All right, I'm hoping that this is clearer. Can everyone hear me now? In the chat space, can anyone hear me? All right, good. So I'm told that this is better. So sorry about earlier for those who couldn't hear me. All I was saying earlier was that we are going to be talking about what EduGuard is. And I mentioned that EduGuard is an independent educational consultant, which means that we fund ourselves for every activity we take or we run. And that also means that we have specific services that we also deliver to specific institutions and organizations. But of course, there are some projects that require that we partner with other people, like, for example, MasterCard, T-Tel, because of probably the amount of funding required for that project or the number of people that we want to meet at the end of the day. So that's what we normally describe as the scale of the project. So usually for projects of that sort that are usually national or regional, we may need to partner with some individuals to be able to make these happen. Our mission is very simple. What we want to do is that we want to raise the standard of education in Ghana. But how we want to do it is by improving how teaching, learning, and assessment are practiced and measured. Now, I need you to note the difference here and how we are different from national realities. Because the honest truth is that on a national scale and with many institutions out there, the focus is on what is taught. So the content, that's why you see huge campaigns or probably huge reforms being done in curriculum reform. So the country has major meetings that are held, multiple meetings across the regions, and it's hugely funded. And at the end of the day, they modify the curriculum that is used to teach. After all our discussion and engagement of stakeholders, we have realized that the problem is not what we teach, but how we teach. So how teaching and learning takes place. That's what differentiates us from all the other institutions that you see out there. So EduGuard Insights is not interested in what is taught, but how it is taught, because we believe that at the core of education is assessment, and how it's practiced and measured is how we are able to change education at the end of the day. Now, what do we do in very simple terms? There are 3 core services that we run. So we have teaching pedagogy audits. So what we mean by that is that we observe and then we evaluate teaching strategies in classrooms. So in fact, if you go to our website and you look at our services, there's one service there labeled as educational audit, and it's divided into 2 sections. There's a free audit and there's also a paid one. The free audit is what we intend to do for about 50 schools across all regions, and those would be done for schools for free. And what it involves here is that I'm sure that when I use the word audit, some people were thinking it's about money, because we normally talk about financial audits, national audits, and all of those things. This is not about money. What we mean by audit here educationally is that we would be looking at the teaching that happens within schools. We'll be looking at the assessment that is done within schools and identify the gaps, and also help address these gaps with teachers in those specific institutions. So it is uniquely tailored towards the needs of that specific school at that specific time. So you may have some experts within a classroom observing a teacher who is teaching and then providing insight on what they think could be done better. But primarily, we are looking at this within the context of assessment. We also do quality checks. So we try to look at the quality and accuracy of instructional materials that schools use. So whether it's the workbooks, the worksheets, the lesson plans, class activities, all these things are done. And the reason why we do that is because we want to ensure age-appropriate, aligned, and effective materials being used by these institutions. But generally, and at the core of all of our services, is assessment. So we look at formative and summative assessment. I know that people who are not really within the scope of education may not understand what we mean by formative and summative assessment. So just a brief one. When we say formative assessment, we are kind of looking at the kind of assessment that happens within the classroom. So the assessment that you use to engage and modify learning. So while a teacher is teaching within a 1-hour period, how he assesses to know whether students understand what is being taught and how he modifies his teaching within that regard is what we call formative assessment. Summative assessment is the one that happens at the end of a unit or at the end of a learning journey. So like an exam, like a test, the WASI we write, the BEC, the checkpoint exams that are written in Cambridge schools. All of these are summative assessments. So that's what we mean by that. So what we do in terms of our services is that we help to design these standard assessments. We help to train teachers so that they are able to deliver effective assessment, and we help schools create valid marking schemes and feedback tools that they can use. So these are generally what we do at EduGuard. Our vision is simple. We want every classroom to operate with intentionality. We want every teacher to receive targeted support, and we want every child to be assessed fairly and taught well. Somebody might ask, but why is this uniquely important? Because there are so many educational initiatives that run across the country. Why should we care about what EduGuard is in to do? We say, for decades, for time immemorial, everything we see around national reform has been focused on changing what is taught. We want to focus on how it is taught and how it is assessed. No curriculum is transformational until the teacher teaches with what is accountable and what is fully equipped. We want to be the missing link between that policy intent and classroom reality. That's what we want to do, and that's why that matters within the scope of what we discuss as EduGuard. I'm prompted to take a quick pause, so please give me a second and then I'll get back. So generally, that's what EduGuard is about. Thank you. Give me a minute. Okay, I think we can move to the next slide that shows us what the NEASS project is all about. Okay, so for those of you who have previously been on the interview with us, and for those who are yet to be on the interview, first of all, sincere apologies to those who have not yet had their interviews. The interviews are usually large, and so we need a team of people to sit and then have a conversation. It's not an interview to determine whether or not you'll be part of the project. It's just a conversation to get to know you better. And so we are so sorry we've not had that yet, but we still want to believe that you are with us and then you are part of this project. So even as we move along through the project, we'll get to know each other better. Now, what is the NEASS project all about? The full meaning of NEASS is the National Educational Assessment Support Series. So I'm sure it kind of gives an idea on what it generally is about. So it's about educational assessment. And this project is meant to give support to teachers on what generally assessment is about and what it is. So it meant literally to fix the root causes of poor learning outcomes in schools across Ghana. So our entry point is generally assessment, because we think that assessment reveals what children are learning and how well they are being taught. So at the end of the day, if you want to describe what the NEASS project is, I think you can describe the NEASS project as being a diagnostic project. You can also describe it as a transformative project. That is generally what the NEASS project is about. What I'm going to do from this point on is that I am going to break down the NEASS project across some specific lines. So in terms of what the NEASS project generally is about on practical levels, what it involves. So we'll move on to the next slide, and then we would see what it generally is. Good. So if you look on the screen that you have there and what is being displayed, you see that the National Educational Assessment Support Series has been broken down into three broad perspectives. The first one is the objectives, the second are the goals, and the third are the components. So the objectives, the goals, and the components. So if you look at the objectives, I have briefly described what those objectives are in what I've talked about earlier. But if you go back to this document, you would see that it has to do with identifying deficiencies in formative and summative assessment practices in Ghana, bridging the gaps, standardizing assessment, empowering educators, and monitoring and evaluating progress. So all of these are what the NEASS project are in terms of objectives, what we wish to achieve at the end of the day. Now, how do we do this, and what becomes a checkpoint on whether or not we are meeting those objectives? First of all, in terms of our short-term goals, we want to be able to conduct a nationwide survey on assessment practices, and after which we would host our first series of workshops for teachers. So if you have realized, this is the reason why we reached out to you as volunteers, because for us to be able to conduct a national survey, we would require a ton of human resource to be able to do this. And I remember for those who had been in the first interview, and I would say it again, one of the key things that drove us was that we mentioned that especially within a world where you have limited financial resources, the most important resources become human. And human resource has been the major guarantee of progress in every society. And so you have become our backdrop, and you are the ones we wish to walk this journey with in making sure that we are able to do this at the end of the day. So we wish to host that research across all the regions, and that's why we reached out to you. Now, in terms of medium-term goals, we are looking to develop a national training module based on that research that we have previously conducted, which we hope that you will be helping us through all of this. But we want to also make sure that there's a platform that teachers across the country can always go back to and have formative assessment tools, whether it has to do with tests, whether it has to do with tracking equipment, it has to do with online portals, online assessment tools. We want to have a platform of that sort based on that research that we have also conducted. So in terms of our medium-term goals, and these are things that take so long to standardize, and that's why it falls within the medium-term goals. Now, to the very long-term goals, something we want to see practicalized and realistic within the Ghanaian educational space, we want to ensure a nationwide adoption of effective assessment strategies. Because just as we have nationwide assessment or nationwide consensus on what is being taught, we also want to have a similar consensus on how it is being taught. And finally, we want to contribute to an improved student outcome in particularly formative assessment. How would we do all of this? And that's where we come to the component stage. So we have research, we have drafting and planning, we have monitoring and evaluation, and we have implementation. We will share this full document with you as time goes on, and then you'd also have access to all of what is being described here. So in general terms, NEASS at a glance is what you see in that infographic that is being showed there on your screen. And I also want to mention that there are a lot of challenges within the Ghanaian educational space. And most people may not be able to familiarize themselves with the facts, but let me say them regardless. As of 2022, that was just 3 years ago, the World Bank said about Ghana that 80% of 10-year-olds in Ghana cannot read and understand a simple age-appropriate text. So it's not text that is complex, but text for their level, literally between the ages of, let's say, the grades of class 1 to 3, more than 80% of 10-year-olds in Ghana cannot fully or independently read and understand these kinds of texts. And what this wants us to understand here is that we have a deep learning crisis in Ghana. And it's not just an issue of access, where you say probably they don't have access to books. No. Or they don't have access to the content. No. It has to do with how these individuals are taught in a way that allows them to be independent. But beyond that, there's huge evidence that suggests that most teachers rely on rote memorization, and I don't think I'm the only one within this perspective. A lot of us can attest to the fact that generally within the exams that we write, most teachers are concerned about literally writing what they have taught you. But someone may say, well, my teachers were not like that. If you explain it and make sense, they would give it to you. That's not always the case. Rote memorization doesn't only have to do with chewing the facts. In terms of assessment, it has to do with only assessing lower level knowledge. And so questions like, what is this? List 3 this, state this. Those are aided by rote memorization, because all they do is assess whether or not someone has the knowledge and does not go further to analyze the way in which they put this knowledge together in constructive forms. So all of these are the issues that the NEASS project generally wants to be able to solve at the end of the day. But at this point, I'm sure some of you may be asking, why has the NEASS project not started yet? Yes, because for those who are probably on the very first interviews, they would have known that a considerable amount of time has passed. Even for the new set, you probably would also have been thinking, well, we've been here waiting for an interview all this while, but why hasn't this interview begun already? Yeah, you are right. And I'm going to be taking you through why it hasn't begun already, why exactly we are having issues with starting EduGuard. First of all, we have already mentioned that projects like this, which happen on a national scale, cannot be funded individually by EduGuard. What it means is that we need partners on this level to be able to make this project a reality. And as you have already been informed or probably been engaged a number of times, we have engaged with partners like TTEL, and we are currently even in real conversations with MasterCard and other partners that we have at the end of the day. And what we are intending to do is to get them to partner on this to allow us achieve the long-term goals, because short-term goals can be easily achieved with very simple funding and huge human resource. But we cannot end at the short-term goals. And so all I want to say at this point is that we have had significant commitment that can allow us to reach our short-term goals. But until we have real guarantee to meet our long-term goals, we are still engaging our partners to make that happen. And some of the reasons why those things are not just about economic pressures on our donor institutions. It also has with some of our partners the need to build a demonstrable proof on concept. So recently, we've been engaging to see whether we can pilot some of these programs on a small scale to have some of our partners fund the project in and of itself. And so all of these things are being done by the team to ensure that the NEASS project comes to a reality. So please believe us when we say that this project has come to stay and will definitely run until we have enough guarantee to run our short, medium, and long-term goals. Please know that this project will definitely be running and see the light of day within the Ghanaian educational space. But the question then remains, until when? And while we wait, what are we going to do? This is where we come to the EduGuard Ambassador Program. We can switch the slides. The EduGuard Ambassador Program. I'm not too sure how many of you have heard of Doha Debate Ambassadors. It's a reputable worldwide debate ambassador program that trains people in what we call the Majlis style debates. The idea is to get people to build consensus and ultimately creating world peace. Now, the EduGuard Ambassador Program is modeled around the Doha Debates Program. Personally, I have been a beneficiary of the Doha Debates Program. Doha is based in Qatar, so we've had some engagements in Qatar. All those conversations is an ambassador program. But this is not the Doha Debates. I'm only saying that we have modeled the EduGuard Ambassador Program around that. You may be asking what it entails and why we want to engage this. The main reason why we want to roll out this as we wait for the NEASS project is that this can run extensively and still equip a ton of people within the Ghanaian educational space with the smallest amount of funding. And the reason why I say this is that there are some human resource in terms of major experts within the field of education, like lecturers, like professors, like major educationists with so much experience, not just in Ghana, but in countries around the world who are ready to give out their services for free. We can run the EduGuard Ambassador Program. Our goal is to inspire people to understand that education is a collective responsibility. Now, you need to understand that at the end of the day, what guides us is the idea that we can start where we are with what we know and what we care about. So we intend to create a network of change makers who can work within their communities to transform education now. So the rationale is simple. NEASS is a huge project that requires a ton of money. Somebody may ask, how much money? I wish I can share that info with you, but to be very honest, let me just be generalized. We are within 1.5 million Ghana cedis. And so that is just for you to understand that the amount of funding required for the project is huge. And the reason why it's so is because we intend to engage every region, 20 schools within every region. That was the plan. And so we are engaging multiple districts to provide food to our volunteers, to provide means of transport to our volunteers, logistics like printing materials. All of this require a lot of money. So 1.5 million Ghana cedis is sincerely not baby money. That's a lot of money. But while we await to have full funding or significant funding to run the NEASS project, we can still do something about our educational system. And that's where the EduGuard Ambassador Program comes in. Because at the end of the day, as an ambassador, what we want you to be able to do is based off 3 tracks. So there are sorry, 4 tracks, and it's just like the Doha Debates Ambassador thing. But let me explain. What we mean by tracks here is that if you are an ambassador on the EduGuard Ambassador Program, you would have to choose a track that aligns with your passion and your skill set. So, for example, one of the tracks is Audit Advocate. What it means is that you would be supporting in assessing, teaching, and assessment practices in school. And this track may primarily work with people within the field of education. Even if you are not, we will still equip you with the tools that you need to be able to do this. So your focus would be on gathering evidence and early trial audits. Another track is the Learning Innovator. So you are going to help teachers experiment with teaching aids. You are going to try to gather students' feedback, or probably things around after school projects. So your focus here would be on helping teachers to adapt their pedagogy and focus more on student-centered approaches or solutions. The third track is being a policy shaper. So here you are going to be documenting insights from the ground, and you are going to be contributing to national conversations. So let's say you are somebody who has a focus on writing, community outreach, stakeholder engagement. This is a track that you can focus on. Or let's say you don't fit into any of these three. The last track is the Research Scout. So what you are going to be doing is that you are going to be helping EduGuard to gather school-level stories, data, testimonies. So you are building evidence and you are helping create impact case studies that would allow us effectively run the NEASS project. So these are the 4 tracks that are involved in the EduGuard Ambassador Program. We'll share the full details as we move along, and probably when we also end this meeting, so that you can fully engage on that. What you'll be doing as an ambassador is that you'll be organizing local educational conversations, forums, community surveys, but more importantly, we would expect every ambassador to run at least one mini project in your area, at least probably within your first 6 months of engaging as an ambassador, one mini project based on the track that you have selected. And you may ask, what would you get at the end of the day? We would give you a certificate of impact and leadership in educational advocacy. It would come from EduGuard, and it would come from all our other partners that are involved within the project that we seek to run. So if TTEL partners on this, if universities like the University of Cape Coast specific departments, we are already engaging them. If they come on board, if MasterCard, your certificate is going to have the credibility of all of these partner institutions on there, and you are going to be an ambassador of reputable effort. But more importantly, secondly, we are going to create a unique page on our website. So those of you who have not been to our website yet, you can when we are done with this meeting. It's called eduguardinsights.org. It's eduguardinsights.org, O-R-G. You can always go there and check it out. You would probably read more about us. We intend to create a specific page where we would host information about every single EduGuard ambassador. And the reason why that's important is that usually when you apply for grants, or probably you apply for further studies or any other thing, and you are required to show evidence of being a volunteer or a community change maker, it's quite difficult to get information on yourself readily available for the people requesting it. So we'll create a unique page with your details, your picture, your impact within your community, the mini project that you run, which is readily available to every individual on the internet, so that you can always have a web page about you that people can reach out to and read about you. This creates more credibility if you apply for anything external outside Ghana or even within the borders of Ghana. So that's the public recognition that we want to talk about. But another thing which is very important to us, and please note this, which is a unique benefit of being an ambassador, is that we would give you priority access when we intend to run paid projects or fellowships. And that is actually within the pipeline. So we have had other engagements as well to run fellowship programs under EduGuard. And those fellowship programs would be paid. and so you would receive allowances for those fellowship programs. If in the future you decide to apply for them and you have evidence of being an EduGuard ambassador, we would give you a priority access to become or to join that fellowship, because our fellowships will be open to everybody around the world, particularly Ghanaians. But once you're an ambassador, we would give you a priority access onto that fellowship, which would be paid. So even though the current EduGuard ambassador is not a paid initiative, know that the rationale behind it is to help make realistic change within the community that we find ourselves in. And the good news here is that we are already a collective group of people coming across various regions. And that's the good thing, which means that we can effect change in our unique communities on the very tiny scales that when we bring together is collective and significant. So this is what we want to do in terms of the EduGuard project. Now, when we are done with this conversation, and hopefully within the process of next week, we have already initiated conversations with our developer to create the page on our EduGuard Insights website where you can go there and fill out your details. So it will not be a Google form. We want the information to be directly accessible to our partners as well. So we would have a page on our EduGuard website where we'll share the link. And when you go there, you fill in your details on whether or not you want to be an ambassador. We would also share a full design PDF of what the EduGuard Ambassador Project is all about for you to take more time to go through. But I have just shared a simple insight into what the project is all about. So I've been talking at length, and I want to mention these two things. One, that we have the NEASS Project. That is our main project as EduGuard. But I have mentioned to you that the amount of funding that we need is really huge. I just gave you a quick overview, and I can promise you, if we share the budget, which is currently, should I say, there's a word, confidential, because we are still in engagement with our partners, is 1.5 million. Between that, it's approximately. That's a lot of money, to be very honest with you. And we can't just start a project that would not see its end. Our team needs significant guarantee of funding before we can engage on this project. So the only reason why we are stalling is because of that guarantee. And we've mentioned beyond the economic pressures on our partners as well, we are trying to gain proof of concept. We're piloting of this project, and we are sure that at the end of the day, we would be able, while we wait, to roll out the EduGuard Ambassador Program, which I have literally just talked about now, and we are hoping that as we move along through the week and probably the coming week as well, we'll share more information on that. So generally, this is what we want to share with you as EduGuard, and we also hope that you are able to join us on this journey. For a number of you who joined this, and I remember when I was on the interview panel with the first set of individuals, a lot of you indicated your passion to research and being the reason why you joined this project. I promise you we will not let you down, and we are still engaging as much as possible. Currently, as I speak to you, I am in Cape Coast, so I recently traveled just on Wednesday. Unfortunately, I couldn't engage a number of you who texted me because I ended up in the hospital. So I was unwell. So I couldn't engage on WhatsApp. That's why a lot of your messages probably were still left unread. But today, we still have to have the meeting. So even though I'm unwell, we are still engaging. And I'm hoping that we move on from here. I am really grateful to having you on this, because I remember that, and let me get a bit personal here. I remember that when the idea first crossed my mind on EduGuard, it was because I was reflecting on my journeys in senior high school. And for those of you, a few of you on this call probably know me because we may be colleagues. I have a huge phobia for chemistry. And the reason why I have that phobia for chemistry is not because I probably don't like learning. I literally did biology in the university, so my degree is in biology. But the reason why I didn't like chemistry is because the teacher who taught me literally comes to class, sits down, and he has an old note one book, And then he reads the notes to us from the beginning to the end. I want to mention here that at a point, that teacher thought I was a secular. And the reason why he thought I was a secular is because anytime he came to class, I was sleeping. So one day when he asked me whether I was a secular, I said, yeah, I was a secular when I wasn't. But he caught me finally during the SRC week when I was jumping all over. And then he saw me and was like, are you not the secular who is in my class? And how come you are jumping all over? That was the day that all my tricks came to an end. But the point I'm trying to make here is that the way in which we teach is the bedrock to building people. I envision a world where nobody ends up like me. I love biology because the teacher who taught me as though it was an exploration of the world. And that's the reason why I'm doing biology now. I have a degree in science education in biology. That's my major. So the truth of the matter is that the way we teach is literally what determines the future of students, not what is taught. Because you can have the content, but once your pedagogy is wrong, and that's the reason why I did education at the end of the day. So this project is not just a project we intend to run to prove a point. It's a project to change the lives of every single Ghanaian student. Even if we are able to meet the needs of one student, we think it's still significant change. We want to do the best that we can to ensure that everybody is able to get the kind of education that they deserve. I think it's currently, I've been speaking at length, so I'll be pausing here for a while. What we can do, I'm told that our breakout rooms are not ready. I'm told the technical team had a problem with that. We initially wanted to have a breakout session where we go into breakout rooms and then on Zoom, and then we discuss a significant change we want to make locally. So some quick breakout sessions, but I'm told we also have a bit of an issue with that. So I'm going to pause here, but I'm going to alert the team to allow us to unmute ourselves. So please, once you're allowed to unmute yourself, please keep mute. When you raise your hand, we would call you, and then you probably share. If it's a question that you have, you can ask the question. If it's something you want to share on the project, what you love about it, you can also share. But please note that I'll be calling you before you speak. But once you are done speaking, please mute yourself. If you are also not speaking at the moment, mute yourself as well. I'll be pleading on that so that we don't have to get the technical team to always be unmuting. We want this to flow like a real conversation. So please give me a minute, and I'm sure that would be set up for us. All right, I'm told that now we can unmute ourselves. So please, if you have a question, you can always raise your hand and I'll call you. If you kindly just raise your hand. Let's please mute. Let's mute. Once you raise your hand, I'll see you and then I'll call you. So let's start with Bukhari Abdul Rashid. Kindly unmute and then share what you have.
Good morning.
Good morning, my dear friend.
I'm doing good. I'm from the Northeast region. Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you. Kindly go ahead. We can hear you.
Yeah, okay. I'm from the Northeast region. I love one thing about EduGuard is the long-term vision. Yeah, because I have been with a lot of organizations that have short-term, like Care Ghana. We were into out of school. By the time the community start enjoying the benefits, and then the project ended. And I was part of assessments in NACA, doing some community within my. It was very lovely for the, but because of the short term, people could not get the general view, the general benefit of it. So I'm very, very happy about the long-term plans EduGuard has come out with. Let's support it in our community, our district or municipals, and our regions. Even you are mentioning about 80% cannot read and write. within 10, and to me, it's even 90%. The assessment within my region, I undergo with NACA, Plan Ghana, and then Care Ghana. And I did some volunteer work with what do you call Bloom African Youth Development. They were purposely into girls. And then the enthusiasm was very high, but because of the short term, people could not benefit on it. So I would say thank you, EduGuard. Let's pray. We'll support you to implement it, and we'll support you for the sake of our communities and our regions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, my dear friend. And you just highlighted something which is very important. To be very honest, we have had some guarantee of funding. In fact, some of our partners have told us of some level of funding. But like I mentioned earlier, and just like my friend said, we want to be sure that we can run this project on a long-term basis and not just short-term, because these educational assessment challenges go very deep and they are institutionalized. And so you need a long-term initiative to be able to unravel them and solve them. And that's the reason why we have not officially kickstarted the NEASS project. But we promise you that we will do that. And we are very grateful for your support as well. Thank you so much, my dear friend. All right. I think we'll move on to Ms. Monica. Then we'll follow on with Joseph. So Ms. Monica, you can unmute.
Okay, I'm Monica from Sandema. I'm a teacher. And actually, I've really enjoyed your discussion and what you plan to do for our education sector. Actually, I'm a teacher who teaches in Basic 1. In my class, what you are saying concerning from age 6 or 7 to 10, it's hard for the students to read. And mostly education during assessment, sometimes because they are not always around, any figure you forge or write and give it to them, they are good to go. Because they are not always around to sit and learn and assess and know what the children are going through, how the teaching is going on, it doesn't work effectively. So when this program is in line, and it will help. It will help to encourage the children to learn, and mostly the resources that we always need to make this learning process go on well, so that the children will be able to read. You'll find children in Basic 3, they can't read a simple sentence and they are in Basic 3. The whole class, you may have about maybe 5 or 6 that can read perfectly. And you have about 50 students in your class and they can't read. It's demoralizing. You'll be teaching and it's like you are doing a huge harm than trying to help the students. So I think if this program is in place, it will help. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. And I think you said something that was very true. Most people don't know that.
I definitely need it. Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much. I didn't realize that I was muted. Yeah, thank you. So I was saying that most people don't realize that in the Ghanaian educational space, so many teachers actually forge marks. And honestly, I don't blame them, because I describe that as the physical barriers to real education in Ghana. Like, for example, there's a pressure on you to force promote. There's a pressure on you from your district director, even when resources are not present. So all of these things put teachers within a practical, realistic space where the only way they can survive is to just go with the flow. And I don't think that's the kind of educational space that we want to see. And so thank you so much for highlighting that. Hopefully we're able to deal with some of these things. Even if we're unable to solve everything, a significant change will still. Thank you very much. Let's continue with, I'm moving in the order I'm seeing in the participant list. So, and also let's try to keep it under 1 minute as well, so that more people can also share. As many as can share to inspire others. I think that would help. So let's keep it under 1 minute. Joseph Yeboah, you can unmute. Thank you.
All right. Good morning, everyone. I'm so excited this morning, and I should confirm I love this initiative. And I'm a kind of person I love doing volunteer work, but I think this one really inspired me this morning. I had the opportunity to work with Lead for Ghana, and I'm currently working in the Afro region. Most schools I have entered before, I realized that what we are doing to the kids are we like you said, you finish teaching and we want the kids to give back whatever you have taught them, just as it is. But I also realize that when you give the cases and different assessment, you see most of them want to do it practical. And when you make it that way for them, you see most of them perform more than what you want them to do for you. And to end with it, I want to ask the question on the ambassador program. Do you have to select a particular region, or you have to give the region to participants? Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for the contribution earlier. And yeah, I also had the opportunity to work with Lead for Ghana, but I couldn't practicalize my opportunity because I had another engagement at the time. Lead for Ghana is doing real good as well. To your question, for the EduGuard Ambassador Program, it is within the community you find yourself in. So we don't determine the community that we are going to assign you to. Know. This is a local change maker initiative. And so within the community you find yourself in, that's what you would let us know of, and then you begin your work within that community. So there'll be a whole training schedule and all of that would share in the coming days. But we will not be pushing people to regions to work in. It is the community in which you find yourself in, or the community that you think that you can work better in. So that's the answer to that question as well. All right, thank you, Mr. Joseph. I think we can continue with, there's no name on this, but I can see that Samsung SMA165F. You can unmute. Oh, I'm not sure the person realizes that's the name on their Zoom account. Then we'll continue with Shaibu Seidu.
All right. Thank you very much. Good morning to you all.
Good morning, my friend.
I'd like to congratulate you for coming up with initiative. It's very good with your intention to improve upon our educational system. One other aspect that I didn't hear much on was on the resources. You know, the needs assessment that we are making, I didn't hear much on the resources. Let's say the number of teachers that are currently available and their motivation to teach. You know, I'm in the health sector. We recently conducted a project where we are distributing mosquito nets to class 2 and class 6 pupils. We got to one school, and the whole of the school from class 1 to 6, there were only 2 teachers. You know, the one had to travel, so it was left with one person alone. Can you imagine? Taking care of from class 1 to class 6. And this person and per class, you know, the number of students per class was more than 20 per class, which means across to get to around 100 and something plus. And so we were conversing whether he had action plans for teaching. You know, we were interested in the side of health, where, you know, they have health programs that they usually conduct. He was telling me that he doesn't even have how do you call it? And that usually educational plan. That he doesn't even have that. Oh, so I think we also need to look at that area. And I'm sure, see, other areas in the big cities, for example, they have enough teachers. In fact, they have more than enough teachers. But unfortunately, this is the case that the rural areas, they have so little to none. And so these students, I don't know. So and sorry, I have to add this one. He told me that when he comes, he usually sits under the tree. That he doesn't go to any class. So you can imagine how can these students get to learn? So I think we also need to look at that area and how the teachers are motivated to actually teach. Whether internal or external, we might need to look at those areas too. Thank you. Over.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shaibu. I need to also point out that this is a real concern that EduGuard has been championing for a while now, despite the fact that it may have a different concept to look to the NEASS project. For example, I think some months ago, we had the National Education Forum. So those of you who have been following, there was a National Education Forum that was done through the Ministry of Education under the direct call of the President, Mahama, His Excellency. And so it was done across regions. Now, during the stakeholder engagement meeting, that was the final meeting where we collate all the concerns across all the regions. I had a special invite to go for that stakeholder engagement forum, and it was held in UPSA, that's in Accra. So when I received the invite, I think the conversation was to help put together all the concerns about education across the regions in Ghana. And my huge interest was in assessment, because EduGuard is primarily assessment when I got there. But I had the chance to join a breakout room that was about access. So in terms of facility and equality to access in education in Ghana. And what you are saying is a real thing that happens in many regions across the country, particularly in the rural areas. And I must also point out that some of these issues are so unique that the kind of focus, planning, and addressing that it needs usually have to also go through the Ministry of Education. And so I remember that one of the major commitments that were done there in terms of equality to access to education, so in terms of the number of teachers that are posted to those regions and all of those things, I think the government is doing significantly to try to improve these things. But realistically, on grounds, like you said, and I can't dismiss this on any level, these are real problems that exist. So you can trust me when I say that these issues are on our heart. And anytime we engage our stakeholders, of course, we bring these things up. Most likely also when we go through the NEASS project and we practically see evidence of these, probably even through the EduGuard Ambassador Program. If our ambassadors give us real evidence of this, we can further engage our partners to be able to deal with some of these things. So thank you so much for highlighting this. And I'm so grateful that you brought it up. It's a real issue that also needs to be addressed. Thank you so much. But trust me, these are things that we are really interested in. Thank you so much, my friend. Next up would have Samuel Wanaku.
Yeah, please, am I audible?
Yes, you are very audible.
So thank you very much. I'm much grateful for this opportunity. So with the stakeholders that you were talking about, that you are being like you want to engage some of them, I would like to give you one stakeholder. When you come to the University of Cape Coast, with the Department of Chemistry, I think last 2 weeks ago, CANS celebrated their anniversary. That was CANS at 10. And during the anniversary, all the weeks I happened to be there. And some of the concerns that were raised by the Department of Chemistry were that a lot of students don't like come to take the course because of their background information, like the things that they learned, how they were being taught. So the departments have taken it upon itself to review how like teachers teach chemistry at the SHS level and also the SHS level. So I think with this one, I think if we're able to engage them, they might buy into the idea, because during the anniversary, there were a lot of concerns that were raised. And I think if we are able to go close to them and discuss this thing with them, I think they also buy into the idea. And with the second question that my brother was making, that was the teacher who sometimes go to classroom have to sit under a tree and other things. So we are saying that, so if these problems are being seen and are being recorded, who is going to take those initiative of bringing of making teachers accessible in those areas? Because now these teachers also don't find it easy or find it well going to the let's say the urban areas because of the lack of facilities that have been available, of which if you are also a member or let's say a citizen of the country, you can also contribute to the development of this area by, let's say, going there to build, let's say, infrastructure, let's say, for instance, facilities for them to stay. And maybe if the government puts people there, they need to, you have something we call, let's say, taking rent and other thing, of which also become a business on its own for you. So let's say if we can, a business or an entity can also rise to cater for this, because we can't also put all the burden on the government, because there are a lot of regions in the country of which the government can't only focus on one, because when the government focusing on one, it become a problem for other regions also, like throwing or like coming back on the government. So if there are entities who can also engage with it by also helping the government to, let's say, build some infrastructures there and maybe taking some allowances or let's say rent from it, or let's say for those who posted for them also to pay back to the person who also made those infrastructures, I think that may be grateful. So thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Samuel. Let me start by thanking you for that recommendation as well and directing us towards the chemistry department in the University of Cape Coast. I'm glad that the department themselves have also identified issues like this. We will do well to get the team to engage them as soon as possible, because like you said, like 2 weeks ago, it's still fresh information. So I'm sure that they should be readily available to engage us on that level. So thank you so much. But also in your second submission as well. Yeah, I think you are right. But to be very honest, there are a ton of organizations out there that are doing their best to make sure that education is accessible to people across the country. So I know examples like Lead for Ghana, who tries to post teachers to these rural areas to try to bridge the gap in terms of equality to access. So providing teachers to those regions and all of that, giving them allowances. I remember I was having a conversation with one of the partners from Lead for Ghana. And one of the things that I found out was that sometimes their allowances are not regular. And you might ask why. It's simply because the partners that fund them as well probably have some economic constraints, or probably there are some issues, and so they don't get regular allowances. And you know, there are very few people in this world who understand the true value of volunteering. And that's the reason why I respect every single individual who is very available to work on projects that are not directly paid, because financial resource is scarce. I remember looking at a research document of MasterCard, and the amount of money pumped in there was so much money. I think about $11 million or something of the sort. And that is still not enough to cater for some significant education problems. So first of all, I agree with you when you say, as people, we can engage. So for example, even if it's a health facility, we can have some consistent checkups and have some of the health personnel check in. But of course, they also have their own constraints. So I don't think we can fully label individuals. But I think from a general perspective, your suggestion is very correct. As people, we can drive this change in our local communities to ensure that we build this momentum. Sometimes all we need is to have people collectively stand to want to make a change. And that's what matters the most. So thank you so much for highlighting that as well. Hopefully through our EduGuard Ambassador Program, we are able to create this local change. Thank you all. Bismarck, please let's keep it under 1 minute so that we can have more. So,
okay,
Aka Bismarck, yeah.
Thank you for the opportunity. I personally feel that EduGuard is an icon for a serious change in our society. Now, by God's grace, I've been able to, at least, I've worked at Cape Coast before. And when you look at the rate at which people are enrolling themselves in education, and you get to the interior parts of the country where we have lesser people in classrooms. And here's the case, you visit the facilities, the schools, and you even find it difficult to see a teacher or somebody available to teach these children. Is EduGuard going to concentrate much on those in the rural areas? My first question. 2, do we have that political influence to also champion our cause? Because we will be getting our findings, coming out with nice, innovative information or suggestions. But here's the case. If the political man is not in the game, we know our setting. In Ghana, if the politician is not part of the game, it is out of track. So do we have that plans to also have those people to spearhead our grievances or the findings of our studies? I'm very, very grateful to EduGuard. When I was at Cape Coast in Tabetin, I really felt people were educating themselves. But when I got into the interior parts of the country, it's like the story is different. So for me, there is that kind of serious variation between in our education sector for people in the urban areas and the people in the rural areas. So if we are going to be looking at piloting the project, is EduGuard having that kind of idea on that track, that majority of the concentrations will be at the deeper, the remote areas, to facilitate the educational system so that our dear children also have equal opportunities as those in the urban areas? Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Bismarck. Yes, and I must say that this is exactly what we stand for in EduGuard. The initiatives that we run are born out of understanding the challenges within the educational space. And so most of our projects, and like we said, creating local change makers, our huge focus is on the rural communities where access is unequal. And so, of course, you can trust us when we say that we have a unique focus on these areas. And even in the NEASS project, if you realized, there were some regions that we reopened volunteers for. It wasn't just because of the number of people that came in, but it was also because we wanted more people within those areas to be able to reach into more rural environments. And so, yes, we are particularly interested in those areas. But just to respond to your second question also on the political will, I must say that this is a very tricky question. And the reason why I say this is that it's quite difficult to judge political will. But of course, I think to some extent, we can credit the political institutions that we have in the country on doing some part in trying to address the crisis. So, for example, I remember that around either 5 to 6 years ago or 4 to 6, people who are teacher trainers on this call, maybe you may have an experience of that. Around 4 to 6 years ago, I think maybe 6. That was when my sister was also graduating from Accra Teacher Training College, the one they call Atraco. And their badge, more than 70% of them, of all the teacher trainers across the country, were posted to rural areas. So despite the kind of change you wanted to make, whichever connection that you had, a ton of them were posted to those areas. And to be very honest, data shows that a ton of people who were posted during that time, most of them didn't go to their post. So they chose to reject the teaching opportunity entirely rather than go to those rural areas. And it is quite saddening Because even when there's political will, it largely rests on the individuals who are sent there to make a change. And so I think we can credit our political institutions for doing some part. Of course, we think they can do better. But once we keep engaging, and one of the things that I can see is the political arena is having huge interest. It's the reason why, even if you see a problem, that problem might be solved after 4 years, when that problem can be solved now. It's because there are so many interests at play within the political arena. And some of these things, I think, are the general challenges of politics in and of itself. So, yes, I don't think I can fully discredit the governments and political institutions. I think they are also doing their part. I think general institutions or other institutions like EduGuard, Lead for Ghana, CARE, all those ones are also doing a part within that space. So I think at the end of the day, all this collective effort is what helps us build the educational system that we see or we want to see in the future. Thank you so much for highlighting that as well. We have actually reached the end of our time. It's 11:37. We're supposed to end at 11:30, but there are a few hands up. Please, let's make it 30 seconds each so that we can wrap up the meeting. We don't want to go above. We've already gone above time, 7 minutes. So let's wrap it up quickly. J. John, kindly share in 30 seconds. J. John Agbaja, you can unmute. You are still muted. If he's not available, Ibrahim Shamsuddin.
Yes, Jejom is here.
Okay, Jejom is unmuted now. Okay, yeah, Jejom.
Yes, please. I would just like to find out whether the form of assessment that EduGuard is working on, is it on the basic level of education or is from the basic to the secondary level, even up to the university level? Thank you.
Yeah, so our focus has primarily been on the basic level up until the senior high level. But when we're running the NEASS project, in terms of the funds, most of our partners mentioned that the basic level should have more focus. And the reason why that is that a transformation at the basic level inevitably affects the senior high level. So of course, I'm sure that as we move along, there will definitely be priority given to the senior high level, but the huge level of focus would primarily be on the basic level. But trust me, we'll definitely have some amount of focus on those levels as well. Shamsuddin. Okay, Shamsuddin is off. Cosmos. Okay, Shamsuddin, you are unmuted. Let's let Shamsuddin speak.
Suggestions, a lot of people were speaking about because being shifted to that's why I say that even in our urban centers, there's a lot we can do there. Still, we have a lot of work to do with regards to assessment and then that's the whole aim of this project. So I would say that let's not put or neglect our urban centers because I haven't doing my laboratory trial on the university campus. One of the many schools within State Coast University. I would like to mention the name of the school for some reason. So the problem or I think the focus of EduGuard, what we want to solve. So I would say that though the rural areas might be much in need of this kind of initiative, it's not neglect because this problem, especially the existing, is that the government schools have got for a little in private schools and over the standard. I think those guys are doing a fantastic job. But when it comes down to our public schools, where we probably have the most number of students, and then where the higher number is where we are going to get most of our people from. So if that place, the standards are very low, I think it will raise a very serious problem. So let's not forget our urban centers as well, because there's a lot that we can
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Ibrahim. And what you've highlighted is very, very true. The fact that rural areas face significant challenges does not mean that urban areas are free of those challenges. There are a ton of issues with education, even in other urban areas. So, of course, I think that those are there. And that's why I mentioned earlier that our projects are regional and national in nature. And so we try as much as possible to address problems across all these levels. But I think that we still cannot deny that there's a huge inequality at the rural areas. So most often, the west of the urban is probably the best of the rural. So of course, we do want to keep in mind that there are still problems that need addressing at the urban level, and we still have to look at the rural areas as well. Thank you so much for highlighting that. Cosmos and then Techno BFCs. So let's go from Cosmos. Yes.
Yeah, please. I'm happy to be part of this program, EduGuard. So I'm from Northern Region, basically in some one district, Myeon district. So looking at the education background in rural areas like these deprived districts and then or especially Northern Region in particular, you go to some particular schools and then you see that students are just there, but teachers too are also posted to those that particular schools. And sometimes it will be classes hours, and you see that most of them are just there playing, roaming, and all those things. And I'm very happy that EduGuide is bringing these initiatives, and I'm hopefully that if this program is able or this project is able to run successfully, we're able to get information from schools and then get in touch with some teachers. It will help them build the educational background and then the academic aspect of the children. And another aspect is you go to some schools and then at the end of every term, there should be exams for the children. But you realize that some schools, the teachers will not conduct exams for them. The students do tests. So how will you get to access the academic or the knowledge of the students who are in the school? So I'm very happy that EduGuard is bringing these initiatives, and I pray that this should come to stand. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Cosmos. Yeah, you really have highlighted real things that need to be addressed within the educational space. Hopefully, EduGuard also takes them up with your help and the help of all other local change makers available. We're able to work this out to the best of the benefit of all. Techno BF6, if you can, I don't know if you know that's your account name, but that's what I can see here. Techno BF6, your hand is up. Yeah.
Am I audible?
Yes, please.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. My name is Baba Fsini, also from northern part of Ghana, a young, vibrant, newly posted teacher from colleges of education. And I'm much delighted to have a meeting with you today. In fact, I realized that after being in classroom, I think much is needed to raise the standard of education in Ghana. Why? Because at college, we thought when we come out, we are just going to be teaching smoothly. Then I now realize that much and extra effort is needed for your student to meet your goals and targets. So coming across this, I make it upon myself that I will be with you and I will contribute my quota to this organization to achieve its aim. Lastly, and I will also I would like to know if EduGuard is the same as EduSports. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you so much. I want to mention that EduGuard does not have any other name aside EduGuard Insights. So our name is EduGuard Insights. We also don't use just the name EduGuard. It always goes EduGuard Insights. That's the complete name. It's registered as EduGuard Insights. If you see Edu Sports, no, all those ones are not EduGuard Insights. We are EduGuard, so please take note of that. And thank you so much for highlighting these realistic things that we see out there. We usually think that education is a smooth change for us, especially us as prospective teachers. Once we get out, we think it's all smooth teaching and all of that, but these are the realities that we face. So thank you so much for highlighting them. Last one from Abdul Ganiu Mohammed, and then we'll wrap up to end the meeting. Abdul, end for us in 30 seconds.
Hello. Good afternoon. Please, hello, can you hear me?
Yes, Abdul, I can hear you.
Yes, we can hear you.
Hello. Hello.
Yes, Abdul,
hello.
We can hear you.
Please, we can hear you.
Please, at the cost. So I choose my region to be Northeast. But currently I've been transferred to Northern region, specifically in, I don't know what that at your end. Thank you.
All right. Yes. Thank you, Ganu. Yes, like we mentioned earlier when we're having our interviews, we said that anytime your region changes, just alert us and they would let you know. For now, I think there's no major problem because probably at the time where the NEASS project may begin, you probably may have been transferred again. So just hold on tight and all the best in the region that you are. But once the project is about to begin, if you realize that the region that you are in has still not changed, or what you have with us is different, please just alert us and then we'll quickly effect those changes for you. So we'll do that on the go as we move along. And thank you so much as well. Now, let me just point out this before the administrative assistant ends the meeting, wrapping up and thanking all of us. You may have realized that you have not been added to the specific regions. We would be doing that as the days go by. The reason why we paused on that had to do with issues with our conversations with our partners, because we want to ensure that we have still engaged on that level. For the new set of volunteers, we also mentioned that we are trying our possible best to see if we can have the interview session with you. I mentioned it's not an interview to know whether you have passed or not. No, it's just a conversation to get to know you better. People who have already had the interviews can attest to the fact. We just want to know you, know who you are, and your rationale behind joining the project. So if it is possible, we would alert you on the page. Until then, we would reach the final decision on when to add all persons to the regional pages. So please don't worry, we'll update you as the days go by. And thank you so much from my end. I would want to pause here for the administrative director to end the meeting, probably a quick wrap up, and then we end. Thank you very much. I really enjoyed this conversation with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hello, everyone. So for those who couldn't join, who are not here from the beginning of the meeting, my name is Stephen Tumano, the Executive Administrator for EduGuard Insights. I'd like to say a very big thank you for everyone who made it a point to join us for today's session. Thanks to your various contributions and giving your quota to this meeting. So before I end, I just want to make it known that all important documents will be shared on the various platforms after the meeting, probably within the course of the week. So yeah, until we meet again for further discussion, that is the end of our meeting for today. Thank you all very much.